our first speaker. Rameshwar is a seasoned enterprise architect and has played various roles as a business application and data architect. He's built roadmaps, app rationalization, modernized apps, and today he's the head of digital automation and enterprise architecture at Avaya. He has created a concept of value-driven intelligent automation that starts with enterprise architecture, data, automation, and cybersecurity. He's an active speaker and blogger on digital transformation, enterprise architecture, OKRs, and anything related to intergalactic automation, also known as removing the hype in hyper automation. He runs the third largest automation group known as the DFW RPA and a monthly podcast known as Next Generation Enterprise in alliance with the CTO Academy, which is focused on grooming future leaders. Rameshwar, what a pleasure to have you with us. Very much looking forward to your presentation.
Jose, it's an absolute pleasure for me, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever the audience is. Likewise, I really like the two-day conversations, and what's actually interesting is you're talking about automation next coming days, so it's a perfect time, really. Jose, shall I get started?
Yeah, go ahead and launch your presentation because right now you're in the preview mode on PowerPoint.
Okay, let me know if you can see.
We can see, but we can see the preview slide. So go ahead and launch the PowerPoint to make sure you're in presentation mode in PowerPoint. There you go. Right on. Your first slide is loading. It seems to have some sort of animation on it. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So looks good.
All right. Welcome everyone, and let me know. Yeah, it's all good. Thanks. So yeah, we're going to talk about the rise of digital twins, and what a perfect time. We're talking about enterprise architecture this week, and then automation next week. So two per tango. Here you go. I hope people don't. I take my profession in a very positive way, but I also make a jab on it as and when needed. We've all been breathing digital transformation. That's what we call DX is the DNA of an enterprise architect. We've been building roadmaps. We are very strategic in nature, governance, artifacts, and I don't need to reach one-on-one of what an EA is. However, unfortunately, last year, COVID struck, a pandemic, of an epic proportions. We lost many of our near and dear. The thing is, many companies were not prepared. What did it mean to us? That's the reality that ground check that gave the pandemic here. We've been claiming ourselves as digital transformation. I don't know how many of you have experienced this. If you're calling your bank or your telephone company, your internet company, in the first few months, the call waiting time was probably 4-5 hours, or sometimes you couldn't even get a resolution. What does it speak to you? For me, a digital transformation means an experience from a customer, from an employee, or from a vendor. It sounds or it turns that in the name of digital transformation, we did digitization. I leave it to you there, but that was what happened. And then, never before of an epic proportion, people jumped on and then moved in radical ways, which created disruption. We've heard the likes of Satya Nadella and Kusto of what digital transformation that couldn't happen in 20 years happened in 2-3 months. So that begets a question for we being enterprise architects. Did we digitize in the form of digital transformation, or did we digitally transform? I leave it over there, and that's what I call it a reality check. When we step in a word, we call it, but then soon the reality check leaves it. And then, the picture to the left depicts that. We called it digital transformation, but as we were going up and down the hill, we slowly found the reality check. That is so far we've done digitization. So I will actually go through some of the bottlenecks. You'll be surprised, which we call as the pillars of transformation, as the brain of transformation. So if you see here, the pillars are forming right now because that's how our evolution is. You might find it funny, but the Lego blocks of digital transformation actually were our main blocks. So Peter Drucker's famous statement, culture is a strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's actually, absolutely true. A digital transformation, in my mind, is an experience for your employees, for your people, and for them. If you turn inwards and take care of your people, your customer is there, they'll get motivated, and they'll take care of it. What has happened? It's a different thing. Then, processes, unfortunately or fortunately, the hype prevails more than the reality. We built business processes that never synced up with the modern world. We built business processes or capabilities that were never up to date, and they were just in our EA repository for whatever reason. Technology, I don't know how many of you follow Gartner. When we were all modernizing ERP, in order to move into this rapid digital transformation, we got a bimodal architecture. When we did a bimodal architecture, we were soon no longer enough. Then, with the Ubers and Netflixes, everybody wanted to be that. But the reality was we couldn't go. So we had these kind of technologies like RPA come in, and some people hijacked. What was the purpose of an RPA? They used RPA for AI. They used RPA for ETL. They used something for something. And then some of the teams, we all like, there is this FOMO syndrome or the shiny object syndrome. So if we don't touch this latest shiny object, then we don't get the latest digital transformation. If we get, well, I'll leave it to you. Then data analytics. No company can have a true digital transformation if data is not at the center of it. Or I will repeat, if people are not there, you've heard many times, data-driven organizations, technology-driven organizations, cloud first. When do we start saying people first? Because if your people are not motivated, then nothing can happen. When we say data-driven first, I hate to say this, why did we have the standards? Because data can be manipulated. So if your data is very siloed and it is not giving you, the whole concept of data information, data leads to information, information leads to knowledge, knowledge leads to wisdom. If your data is siloed, and with that partly siloed information knowledge, your wisdom itself is biased, like how AI is getting it, because AI gets biased data. So if you have this, how are you truly getting a true independent opinion? And then organization. Every organization, dreams to be the Netflix or the Ubers of the world. But the reality is far from reality. Not every company is made for that culture. That's not every organization's DNA. It's an evolution that takes place. So without understanding that, if we jump in, then we are in trouble. And then finally, is how well do we understand the journey? We've been talking about customer 360, but when you do this customer 360, I'll tie back to the processes and the technology. Is every system has built its own customer 360, and we just touch those areas which we know. There are many areas what we don't know. So again, the question that begets is the foundational pillars of digital transformation. As the saying is, the strongest link is as weak as the weakest link. Right? So we'll just run through, and these are the animations. So to compound to our goals or to make our life better for a better world, we had from the left the social media to the cybersecurity. Social media, thanks to Web.0, with Facebooks and whatnots, the Twitters and the Instagrams, things have gone paranoid. And then, in the early 20s, 2000s or something, Internet of Things and cloud rapidly accelerated. People said cloud first, mobile first, or even, I remember, even we said big data first, but then big data became normal data. And, unfortunately, last year, I don't know how many of you followed, there's been an unprecedented statewide sponsored herbicide ads. In fact, just this week, somebody manipulated Teams password and wanted to poison Florida's water. So, all these technology trends are disrupting. The disruption is for a good, but are we becoming disjointed is something that we have to know. So, in interest of this, at least the last 3-4 years, what I've heard is these are all necessary evils. No doubt, we can't live without them. In fact, VR, AR are coming. But what does it mean to us? And then ultimately, like I said at the very beginning, the customer experience was no longer the traditional way. We used to try it out, test it out. We didn't like it. We used to give it back and use it. Now it's all online. You can go virtually anywhere, like Amazon offers, or Shopify offers an experience. All the experiences online. If you have purchased glasses like me, you don't need to go to the Costco or any of the glasses shop. You just go online, test it out. So the whole process has shifted. But when the business models have shifted, why isn't our processes not shifting? That's the problem that we have. So to address that, what I've seen is, and we as enterprise architects, we are very strong in three things. Capability modeling, which is our forte. We build value chains and value chains and business capabilities. The problem, what I've seen is, we are who, meaning we connect to the strategy, we connect to the enterprise architecture. We are all about strategic alignment. We are all about organization goals, but we miss the how. How is the value chain and the capabilities being impacted? How is the strategy to the operations being well aligned? Well, doesn't sound like a cliche that we as enterprise actors, we've always been talking about strategy to execution. The problem is, we think we built a cat, and as we built the roadmap, the cat became a lion. There's a very good scope. If you put a cat in front of the mirror, it thinks it's a cat, but it was a lion, and you didn't even realize, because people have changed, process have changed, technology has changed, and this map that I have is not up to date. So I do not have the how, due to which I am not able to do a real-time analysis and change my models or improve my experience. My experience is before effect or an after effect, but not real time. This is the gap that that has been created, and in my view, this is the gap that we have to address. So here I am, as my title actually says, we are talking about digital twins. I'll talk a little bit of the industry jargon and then tie it back to our enterprise architecture. If you see here, you would have seen this picture on Google, or many of you would have already known LinkedIn. To the right is an actual car, but to the left is a car, digital. We've always had twins, and digital twin is a concept that has embodied from biology. So the whole digital twin is a real-time digital representation of the physical asset, meaning the wheel, the tire, the light, everything, thanks to computer, thanks to IoT, thanks to storage, thanks to everything else, it has become so extremely affordable, you can map a physical asset to a digital twin. So I'll give you an example of the prehistory, and then I'll come back to this live one. Before the digital twin or the pre-IoT era, if some of you have come from mechanical engineering, we always use CAD, CAM, and computer data engineering. If you have seen, GE, again, it's GE that has created most of this, and AutoCAD. If you think the turbines or the windmills or the electricity generations, they used to simulate or build a model in CAD system. Based on that model, traditionally we used to build a model on a paper, but as our technology evolved, CAD came in, we built a digital model. The problem was that it's a model based on our experience. So once that model was built, they used to build the turbine. Once the turbine was built, let's say the blade for some reason got cut off. So then they would have simulated that data. So if you notice over here, it is a before and after where data is being collected and then analyzed for the impact and then being subsequently fine-tuned. The problem with that, again, we all are, that's evolution was not being by virtue of being real time, and then the storage was also expensive. The models were time crunching, costly, and then we could not build a true digital twin. With the Industry 5.0, where everything is connected, all the way from cybersecurity. In fact, I was reading an article day before yesterday. You guys are talking 5G. US and China are actually jumping ahead on 6G. It means on 5G, we are getting 1 million phone connections per square kilometer. Probably, I don't know, it will go to 10 million or whatnot. So everything being connected and, with storage going crazy, 5G becoming and internet being rapidly available, we can collect real time and detect real time. So by doing this, you can build a digital twin live with the industry. So if you see to the left, I have cybersecurity in red, and I put it for a reason because of the breaches. So the digital transformation that we have been talking, we need to call it a secure digital transformation, or somehow have security as a core part of digital transformation. It was in the back burner, but it's imperative now that to have cybersecurity. Now coming to the right, if you see, I have had data, ML, AI, and PI. Uh, PI stands for process intelligence or process mining. So the whole concept of process mining actually evolved from digital twin. So to give a best analogy of what a process mining is, when I started this journey of what a digital twin has to be, I really struggled of, okay, it makes sense of building a digital twin for an enterprise, for an industry, a manufacturing industry or a car or something like, you want airlines have great safety record of 99.9 or something, but that 0.001 in the Six Sigma is good enough to crash or wipe out the whole people in that in the airlines. So I started looking into it. When I tried to look at the analogy, the best analogy that I could come was, we all go to the doctor's office. And when we go to the doctor's office, they take our blood tests, they take our health checks, and then they say, give us a call in 2-3 days. And then we get a call 2-3 days later saying, you know what, hey, you have a very bad cholesterol or something, so you take statin, or you better change your diet. You reduce eating your intake of your food and going there. So if you see here, what has happened is the descriptive analytics is basically what has happened or a history. And based on your health reports, the doctor is saying most likely you will have a heart attack or something, something, something. And that's predictive. But between when the blood test was done and by the time the result was done and what would likely happen, between these, there's a gap. That gap was you went for a normal walk or for a running, or you went for a cup of coffee, suddenly you crashed. When you crash, what happens is you get 911 and they call you and they put you under a CT scan or an MRI. What does an MRI or CT scan do? An MRI or CT scan does a live analysis. They take a live picture all the way from your heart to your arteries and see how they're performing. And then somewhere they see there's a blockage in your artery, and then immediately what they say is, oh, you got to have a surgery like this. So the same thing, why is it being applied for an enterprise? And this is where a digital twin helps. So using the principles of digital twin that the industry has provided, and using the analogy of what's going into the doctor, the diagnostic analytics, which is basically making interjection to your systems and understanding real time what is happening. And then by building a digital twin, you know what's happening. Now, you may come up with this question. What do you mean by digital twin when we are already digital? Because we store our data in the systems. We have our processes in the systems. But like I said, the gap is none of them is real time. When we use AI, if you take an example of a sales or an example of finance or something, you're likely saying this is whatever, by maybe we'll reduce the inefficiencies. But in order to reduce the efficiency, when you have a digital twin, you can keep continuously improving your AI or even your descriptor. So a combination of these three, of data and analytics and process, gives you a real time, what we call as digital twin of an enterprise. In the world of analytics or in the world of mining, we call it process mining. But process mining took a leap of AI and evolved into process intelligence. So this is what a digital twin of an enterprise is. So quickly speaking, what constitutes a digital twin? So the first thing is, like in any ETL system, we collect data, which is no different. But we collect some key attributes needed for process mining, which builds a lineage. If you have done lineage in EA, or if you've done some data lineage, you will understand how the lineage is built. But by stitching the systems with, there are three primary attributes and the rest of them are non-functional attributes. Once when you build it, the first thing what it tells you is, remember, key component of BPM is process discovery. The first thing what the process intelligence does is it helps you build the process discovery. Then you can analyze, you can monitor or find out what is happening, and then you detect it. So by looking at it, like how we've done the digital twin analogy of a manufacturing of a business process, you can simulate a what if analysis, and then you like it, you improve further on it, and then you automate. So the process mining actually has a little bit more. People have hijacked process mining or process intelligence to automate. In the industry, when we were implementing ERP systems, traditionally, before when we implemented an ERP system, we used to have BPR. I don't know how many still use the word BPR, business process reengineering, is to make sure that your process is defined efficiently and onboarded to ERP. But the reality is we customize ERP to our business needs. I have not come across any company, or I will be, there's no company, single company that has not customized. And the result of that customization is a pain, what we call as impartial or semi-digital transformation. When we want to modernize, our ERP systems, we struggle. Why do we struggle? Because we have completely customized ERP. So again, understanding the process is not for automation. Understanding the process is to find out your inefficiencies. Maybe the process itself could be optimized or process could be re-engineered. Only then you want to automate. Now, automate, unfortunately, has taken a very wrong definition. In my view, automation, even a PowerShell and an Excel is automation. It's not RPA or AI. Automation could be API. Automation could be ETL. Use the right tool for the right choice. This is something I've been strongly advocating all the automation guys is have enterprise architects. Don't automate for the sake of automation. Use it when it makes value, and unless you have no other option, automate it. So this basically, and now I show you actually a lot, I've recorded a picture of how it was. So if you see here, we had BPM, which is, if you see here, very clean, neat and sleek. And then to the right is process intelligence. This is a classic example of a procure to pay, where we have supplier, procurement, procurement manager. You knew the condition. Based on, if you see, again, the BPM was doing process discovery. The process discovery was by a series of interviews or by documents, and we laid it down. Like I said at the very beginning, most of the BPM, the problem was they were expensive, time-taking, they became static. And then part of the process BPM, if you see all the steps, it's continuous discovery, assessment, and optimization. The time it takes to do this continuous discovery and assess and optimize takes forever. So many companies adopt BPM philosophically, but when it comes to reality, the IT team, especially, can think, that EA is an ivory tower, and business architects and BPM guys work very closely, but it becomes expensive and expensive sometimes as an ivory tower. What process intelligence does is took the same concept of digital twin, and if you see here to the right, it's no longer smooth. It's it's all over. Sometimes the purchase requisition directly went and jumped into a GL, or it went to a goods receipt. Some went through the happy path. Some didn't even go through the happy path. So if you see, BPM was very top-down and very strategic in nature, because we had the strategic alignment of what a capability should be, what a processes ought to be. But the digital twin said, you know what, that's all phenomenal, but this is the reality. You better go and have your reality set up and running. So there have been many articles of, is BPM right or process mining right, or should process mining be a part of AI, or should it be part of an automation? In my view, as an enterprise architect, process mining is very integral to BPM, because once you understand how bad your process is, I don't think anybody, any organization in the world is linear. We live in a non-linear world, and nothing happens as expected. So a digital twin actually helps us build it. So once you understand the happy lines, the compliance, basically how good is this with my SLAs, SLOs, and how good is it from a compliance, you then optimize it. And then the beauty of process mining is it actually builds you an optimal business process. So you can take this business process of a procure to pay, which is very well, and then push it back to your BPM. Now, by constantly updating, obviously process intelligence has dashboards and analytics. By continuously improving, and when you feel you're comfortable that this is the best process, you can export this processes back to BPM. So now your BPM or your process map, it becomes much more real time. And when you tie this processes back to your BPM, which ties back to your capabilities, you now have a true digital twin that is much more real time. And when you make strategic transformation roadmaps, when you want to do some automation, one of the struggles that I've seen in automation is they give, there are many examples of should we do automation can be applied in finance, automation is across this one. But what gives bang for the buck? We as enterprise architects tell this line of business or that capability is best suited with heat maps. But by having the digital twin tied up with the capability, we can say across the enterprise which gives better bang for buck. We were more statistical in nature or historical data collected, but now we can say real time. It makes sense for us to invest in this line of business or probably spin up a new business model. So this is how a digital twin, by connecting to a value chain, can make an organization much more strategic in nature. This is something we are doing it, but it's an evolution. So now that we have tied this back to the what do you call this, the digital twin, how do we move from a digital twin to a digital organization? Remember, everything you've seen over here in this bubbles is all there, nothing different. But we are now taking the digital twin, tying it to our process real time, and having a much more alignment. The big gap that I've always seen, or we have always seen, is strategy to execution was a big gap. By tying the strategy to execution, you now have a much better way of aligning with our EA. While we are focused on building capability maps, value chains, which is what our strength is, we can oversee strategy to execution and then effectively monetize our data. So by combining data with our processes, you have your digital twin much more well-armed. You can say why my sales order has been stuck for 30 days in this one. So by looking at it, let's say, we had a new vendor. Traditionally, what we would have done is we would have put a hold on the vendor, and then people would have analyzed that and come back and saying this. With the digital twin, you now know why your process, your what you call your AP took time. Instead of waiting for 30 days or 45 days, with the digital twin, maybe you can say we just established a vendor and let's release it quickly. So the time to deliver or complete your procure to pay, that took 20 or 25 days. By real time, you could reduce it to probably 10 days and then apply automation to make it to 2 days. Automation, again, I repeat, is all the tools. So now when you have all the 4 quadrants gradually creeping across your organization, I call this a digital twin becoming a digital twin organization. So ultimately, all of this should mean what? We are doing this for improving the customer experience. The customer experience is non-stop, in my opinion. Digital transformation doesn't stop with just giving one time a customer experience. The customer experience is continuously evaluation, discovery, and moving further. I think digital twin and enterprise architecture, when they're aligned, the experience becomes non-stop. So with that, I would like to say thank you to all of your audience, and happy to take questions.
Excellent, Rameshwar. I'm gonna ask you to click the stop sharing your presentation button so that you and I can be a little bit bigger on the screen. Very, very good. So for our global participants, this is your time. Post your questions. I'm gonna keep an eye on the questions that you have for Rameshwar. What do you want to know about digital twins? What do you want to know about enterprise architecture, digital transformation that is most applicable to your context? So don't be shy, whether you're a novice or an expert. Ask the questions that add the most value to your context. I'll start by, first of all, fascinating view and review of the elements of this friction that exists between real process and technology to a large extent, because it's the catch 22. You know, do you start with technology, do you start with process? And I think you've done a fantastic job covering the steps for elimination, reduction, and simplification before jumping into automation. So I'm gonna, one of the questions that emerged as you were speaking is the hype versus reality, right? When it comes to technologies, you're dealing with a lot of technologies in your role. What are you finding to be most useful right now, and what do you think is most hyped right now and it's not really delivering practical value at this point?
I'll speak reality. So I've actually moved from EA, even though EA is very passionate to me because everything I moved to automation for a reason is there is more hype in the automation. Next week is all about RPA. What pains me is, nothing in the technology industry has got the hype of what RPA has created. So, and I've seen many customers, many of the RPA teams, for whatever reason, have not had an EA. So I've seen literally RPA being used as an ETL tool. I've seen RPA as an orchestrator. Nothing wrong, but there are better tools to do that. So I moved in to calm down, and I'm very, very vocal on LinkedIn of what automation is and what it isn't. Some people don't like me, but it is me who I am. So, the problem in the automation industry, I'll give you an example in the whole, automation industry. People ignore data. I can't imagine how you can ignore data. You can say we've done a great automation. Okay, I've automated my procure pay. I've automated my GL. But if my data is bad, what good is the data? Garbage in, garbage out. So then they said, let's slap AI. Oh, we can extract data. Okay, but if my invoice is junk, what good is it? Then is my data verifiable? Is my data the right source of truth? And then am I doing the process? Actually, I have a metric called process rejected metric. We've found that actually some of the process don't need to be automated. They could just be retrofitted in another system. This is not being, cascaded. This is not being spread. So, basically, and then, thanks to the likes of Gartner and everybody else, we started automation, and then we called it intelligent automation. Then we called it precise automation. Then we call it hyper automation, and that's why I have the word is I remove the hype in hyper automation. So when the management is being constantly fed with these buzzwords, there's a FOMO created in the management, and there's FOMO created in people. Gosh, okay, I had MPA, I had AI, and suddenly some vendor said you didn't have data quality. Okay, I need data quality. So, and then somebody said something else. Without even speaking to your EA or without having these tools, people are just getting fascinated with the technology. So what I try to do is, and then the management gets overwhelmed. Okay, are we missing something by not doing this? And every other day we hear. In fact, I saw an article said RPA and AI have become the global enablers of the world, and I'm like, really? We've had AI since 1950s. We've had scripting. These are things that we enterprise architects have to educate people as, okay, guys, AI has been there since 1950. Yes, it's been accelerated through the cloud. It's become affordable. Don't call it as a modern legal. What you need is a business model, and that doesn't matter which technology. Can my business model, make a customer happy? If I can, like I gave the example, when I called my bank a year back, it took me 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I don't care what damn technology they use. If I can get my experience and if they can troubleshoot my problem in 2 minutes, I'm happy. I really don't care. So it's the experience that I'm looking versus the technology. But unfortunately, technology is being fueled by vendors, and they have ripped or created such a hype and overshadowed everything else. And the reality is, we are not Netflix, Uber. If that doesn't come across, then we are far from reality. So we as EAs have to separate the chaff from the wheat.
Excellent, Rameshwar. I mean, we can talk about that topic for a long time. because as you know, you're familiar with the industry. The overwhelming majority, lots of different reports for very reputable consulting organizations that put it anywhere between 70 to 90% of digital transformations fail. And one of the reasons for that is because we're automating things that don't need to be automated. And we're calling that digital transformation. So this is a great point. Technology is a wonderful thing if it enables the right processes to create value, but also technology can make stupid happen at the speed of light, and you don't want that. And all right, forget about my views. Let's get
No,
on
it's a
to
fun topic for that.
that's right. Let's get on to some of our global audience questions here, and we have a number of them, and I want to get to as many as possible. So, there is someone who mentioned, and this is just a note. There's a little bit of an echo on your microphone, and I don't know if it's because you're far away, but if you can get a little bit closer, I think it may be a little bit helpful. But
Is it better?
yeah, I think so. I think that's better.
Okay,
Now,
I was a bit away
now
from the
Anna
mic.
Martinez has a question here. She writes, excellent presentation. What would you say to an IT professional who is resisting to implementing process mining? So that's an interesting question, very specific to her context. Clearly, she's in a context where she is perhaps exploring process mining, but the IT professional she's working with is actually resistant to implementing process mining. So maybe you can go further than that, maybe the pros and cons of implementing process mining. When is a good idea, when it's a bad idea to do that?
So Anna, excellent question. I was thinking other way. EA proposes I mean, IT does everything and EA opposes it because that's the culture. It's good. So traditionally, what we've done, again, every company is different. Uh, you know, um, I'll be blunt. Many of us in EA are known as ivory towers. Unless you take the responsibility of delivery, many people don't even understand this. The moment you take the delivery, that is where they connect it. Now, why am I saying that? Is when you try to educate, sometimes, everybody has their own priorities. They may not understand. Part of EA should be innovation. Process mining doesn't take much time. These days, I want to endorse any vendor. I like everything. Uh, take a course from Vanderlast. I took it. I would recommend everybody to take it on Coursera. I'm not endorsing him, but it's a good course. He is one of the father of process mining. It doesn't take much time. Just sign up a free version of any of the vendors, build it, show it to the people. Automatically, there's a lot of difference. There's a saying, picture speaks 1,000 words. When you show the value, they will automatically believe you. Because if you show BPM, oh, you know what, BPM was so boring. It takes time and never builds it. So again, no offense to any BPM professional. I've been a BPM guy, but I myself was frustrated that it can take months and months forever. And still we're not true. So my suggestion to you, Anna, is take it on yourself, install that on your laptop, build the value, show it. A classic example is today, in order to cash, it takes time. Show the value of it to the people, and then they will realize. When you show something, like I said, no, but you must be very healthy and you are running, not to say, but until we crash or until we go to the doctor where he does an MRI, that is where we realize, gosh, now I need to take care of my health. So show the same thing. Show that you have a surgery needed. Show that you have cholesterol or there's some block in your artery. Then everybody will jump on. So that's my recommendation. That is how I struggled to show the value of automation for literally 2 years. Once we showed the value, I just moved on. Actually, instead of being an IT, I became an IT guy leading the whole automation practice. So that's my recommendation to you, Anna.
Excellent. Innovation and value creation are inextricably linked, and that's important to that people understand that, and they know how to implement ideas that create value, and then they can get the support that they need. Another question here. This one comes from Jen Rudenberg, and Jen asks, can you give actual examples of leading or lagging indicators in that your digital twins managed to achieve? So in the work that you have done with digital twins, what were some leading and lagging indicators that you may have come across through that work?
Actually, it turns out as I was working on my deck last night, I accidentally deleted that slide. So, a great question. Leading and lagging indicators, and actually there's an article I wrote on how to effectively convert your leading and lagging indicators using a digital twin. So, take the example of the traditional leading lagging indicator. That's on a monthly basis. The problem is it's an after effect, and the leading indicator is that is showing you how you're trending towards your goals. The problem between the leading and the lagging is, like I said, is the real-time gap. When you build this digital twin, and maybe I can take it offline because I don't have the slide. When you have this digital twin, actually you can tie this to effectively to your strategy. So you can now, when you show your leading indicators are telling you how you're performing. So when you tie this leading indicator to a digital twin, basically, let's say, I took the classic example of to pay, but I can take order to cash out, any other process where, it was stuck on a workstation for whatever reason. And then your leading indicator was showing it's not healthy. This is something that the process mining can build it for you. What you could do is you could take an action on it. There are three ways you could do it. Because it's sitting on a workstation, quickly you could put a bot, but in the long term you could put an API. So by taking an action on your leading indicator, your lagging indicators can become effective. Meaning, your lagging indicator last month, your sales were, roughly 2 million. Now, by looking at your leading indicators and your digital twin, you know your process where exactly it is stuck. You can take a real-time action, and then you can have a better revenue. Your lagging indicator can then become much more effective. And when your lagging indicator becomes much more effective, hopefully if your organization is publicly traded, you know what it means. So a digital twin with the leading indicator can actually change lagging indicators. I can take it offline and show you some of the presentation that I missed. And my bad, I missed that slide. It would have been a nice way to show how to convert process intelligence, leading indicators, tying back to your strategy and your vision.
Outstanding, outstanding. Hey, we have like 30 seconds and I want to get one more question in from this one coming from William Rice. And William Rice is asking, what are your thoughts about applying the concept of digital twins to people like customers, patients, and has there been thoughts on applying digital twins to people and maybe the customer?
So we're all about brand terminology. I have said all of this should mean an experience. For me, again, digital transformation is the most abused and the most hijacked word. I don't care whether it's a digital twin or normal twin or Siamese twin. It has to deliver experience. We are talking of a digital twin to improve our digital transformation and ultimately improve my experience. If you have seen, have you seen the space launch of ISS? With SpaceX, Falcon X, on October, November. This is what I call digital transformation. It makes my nerves go. If you've seen Apollo 5 or Apollo 6 or Saturn or whatnot, you would have seen all the astronauts or cosmonauts on the rocket with such big books and hundreds of switches. So anything goes wrong, they have to flip the pages, switch this. In SpaceX, the cosmonauts had 6 or 8 blue lit bright lit monitors. All they were doing is surfing. This is experience. Folks, whether we call it a digital twin or a normal twin or whatnot, our experience has to be that. If we cannot provide that kind of a seamless experience anywhere, doesn't matter what technology. So digital twin for me should be digital transformation, and an experience is for employee, vendor, customer. That is what I view. It doesn't matter what technology you use. Even if I give a spreadsheet and if he's happy with it, that's an experience, I call it. And we can't ignore spreadsheet. Spreadsheet is powerful too.
Rameshwar, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge with our global audience today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us.
Sure, absolute pleasure and phenomenal, outstanding speakers. Thank you. I look forward.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's Rameshwar Balanagu, and a real pleasure to have him with us. So our next session will be with Srinivas Tumalalapi, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Enterprise Architect with Fifth Third Bank. And we are going to meet you at the top of the hour to go over his presentation that will focus on low code and no code applications and emerging trends in application development. So you do not want to miss that. I will see you at the top of the hour. Thank you.